If you were asked to list your 5 greatest strengths, could you do it? Life coach MaLinda Perry says we have 34 strengths as individuals, and learning them in sequence can be an important part of living a productive and healthy life. I'm Steve Peck of Wyoming PBS. This is Wyoming Chronicle. What if people embraced a self-help strategy that focused on capitalizing what we're good at rather than improving what we're not so good at? Life coach MaLinda Perry of Gillette thinks that's a great idea, and she makes a living helping individuals do exactly that. You categorize yourself as a strengths coach. I have a feeling we're not talking about bench presses and squats in the locker room. What strengths? What do you mean by strengths?
Gallup-certified is an assessment we run. Everybody has 34 strengths. Everybody.
Perry is trained in the well-established Gallup-certified assessment, also known as the CliftonStrengths or StrengthsFinder. Developed in 1999 by PhD psychologist Donald Clifton, chairman of the famed Gallup Research Organization, it's long been used in business to evaluate employees and job applicants, as well as by colleges, universities, professional sports teams, and government agencies, including the Wyoming Department of Education. Nearly 40 million Americans have taken the Gallup assessment, but overwhelmingly in employment or institutional settings. MaLinda Perry's job is helping individuals do it on their own.
Dr. Clifton decided many years ago, he said, what would happen if we focused on what was right with somebody instead of what was wrong with them? And he took all his clients and developed an assessment and found out that between all of the people he ran this through, thousands, that everybody had 34 strengths. And they're all learned except for one. And so you start learning them as young as 2 years old. And by the time you're, done baking, so guys 28 years old, somewhere around there, and girls 24, your strengths are pretty much where they're going to be the rest of your life.
Well, I can tell right now we have a lot to talk about here. I am reminded of a phrase that I think we've all heard and maybe almost everyone has used, which is you just don't know your own strength. And it tends to be used when something unexpected and maybe even unwanted has happened. But I think from talking to you, that's very, very close to what you're talking about, isn't it? Knowing what strengths are and what the best way to use them is once you do recognize them.
Right. And I think for myself, so I only knew my top 5 going into my certification. Everybody in the class opened up their assessment to see what their bottom strength was, of course. And mine was discipline. And I spent my whole childhood, my dad saying, there's no disciplining you, and you have no discipline. And I opened it up. Sure enough, number 34 was I have no discipline.
And by this time, you'd gone through a process where you weren't surprised, at least, when you learned.
I wasn't surprised, I was relieved. It was like, oh, thank gosh, I don't have to do this anymore. I spent so many years trying to be the perfect military daughter. There were these qualities that I just felt like everyone had expectations of me to be this perfect girl, the perfect cheerleader, the perfect student, and it was exhausting. Like I had an eating disorder and I was tired of trying to be this perfect person. And when I got my assessment, opened it up and saw discipline at number 34, I laughed hysterically. And they were like, what's so funny? I said, oh, thank gosh, I don't have to be that girl anymore.
That's interesting. I have a feeling if I opened up that list and I saw something listed at the bottom, I think an initial reaction for lots of people would be what? I better get to work on that right now and move that up the list.
Right.
Yes or no?
No. Everybody wants to do that. I need to make it better. But what we have found is your top strengths already make you incredible. I liken it to the strengths at the bottom. To work on those is like pulling an oak tree up from the roots. How much work would it take you to pull that tree up from the ground to win.
And then where would you be?
You would only be here. And you'd only be like this far off the ground. And if we focus on your top strengths and grow them, they're going to go through the roof. And pulling from the bottom, it just makes you mediocre. And I'm pretty sure you weren't made to be mediocre.
Not everybody needs to be disciplined. In
No,
other words,
no,
it's okay if you aren't,
exactly.
especially if you know what your strengths are. Okay, what are your top 5? What have you learned?
My top 5 are strategic, adaptability, so it runs amok all the time, and let's see, achiever, positivity, and ideation.
Ideation.
I think outside the box. Yep. I tell people it's like that head icon, and you see the head, and then you see all the little icons around it, the light bulb and all of that. That's how my brain works. So with strategic and ideation, my mind moves really fast. So I tend to make people a little crazy sometimes.
You've turned this into, fair to say it's a business, right?
Yeah.
But it's called what?
MaLinda Perry Consulting.
Within it, there's this topic area called Happy Girls.
Oh, Happy Girls Don't Do That. Happy Girls Don't Do That is our nonprofit. It came about through Strengths. As I was coaching girls and teaching them about strengths, I would hear all the time about all the mean girls in their lives, being bullied all the time, how hard it is to just be a girl anymore. And coming from corporate and growing up, I was bullied my whole life, and then got into corporate and I was bullied. And I started thinking, it's not about you. If you were the girl who told me that you were being bullied, I'd say it's not about you. You're strong, you're beautiful, you have great strengths, you bring amazing talents to the world. It is not about you. It is about the other person, because happy girls don't do that.
Would you classify what you do as being on this very broad spectrum of mental health,
Mm-hmm.
from petting your dog in a quiet time to seeing a psychiatrist who's an MD, among other things, and
Right.
everything in between?
Right.
What's where you see yourself and your field slotting into that gamut?
Oh, I love that question. We're not therapists. Coaches aren't therapists. I don't care where you've been. I don't care what your past has dictated. I care, but it's not part of the equation. I want to see where you're at now and push you forward. All of your strengths, all of your greatness, I want you to see yourself through my eyes.
The word coaching has connotations,
Mm-hmm.
for better or for worse, often are associated with sports, I suppose.
Right.
I've witnessed people who are trained and, in your case, like your case, certified, meet with resistance. And the resistance comes from this. Who are you to tell me how to live? What's so great about you that you can tell me how to live my life? I bet you experienced that.
A little bit, not as much as what most people think. By the time people come to me, they decided that it's time to make a change, or I need to do something different, or maybe I just need somebody in my corner for once. And that makes a big difference.
What if my transmission needed to be overhauled? I don't know how to do that.
Right.
But I can find someone who does. And I guess take it further into the world of the sports coach. I've seen a lot of coaches talking, and they're telling that talented young athlete to do something that coach couldn't do in a million years.
Right.
But he knows what to do. She knows
Right.
how to teach it. And that's what you do.
Right. That's exactly what I do. And hopefully I look at all my clients as they just become part of, I feel like they're family, and a lot of people would say that crosses the line. But when you work with a coach and you get to know, as a coach, I get to know their family and their dynamics, and I care about your Thanksgiving. I care about, what your kids are doing and how they're moving forward. I truly embrace you as a person, which gives me that insight as to what makes you, just along with your strengths, but what makes you, how you use them to get you over the hump, strategically help you make a plan that moves you forward faster. Who wants to stay stuck or sit on the pity potty for too long? No.
How many people do you encounter who don't even realize that's where they are? A lot.
A lot of people. I even say coaches need coaches. I have coaches that help me get over that hump or move forward. I think we can all use, sometimes it's just great to have an accountability partner to say, this is my goal for this year. Help me get to that end goal. And we do a little bit of that too.
I was a newspaper man for a long time. I used to write a particular editorial around New Year's. And I said, make those New Year's resolutions. Because even if you don't meet them, you're starting out with good intentions.
Right.
And that's a good place to begin.
If you're not dreaming or growing, you're dead. Our whole lives, people give us these barrier labels. My dad gave me my Disney-esque attitude. Didn't know what it was.
Attitude?
Disney-esque.
Disney-esque.
Disney-esque. And I thought it was because I collected Disney. And so he'd always say, your Disney-esque attitude's going to get you in trouble. My big military captain dad. And I'd say, I don't know what that means. And so when I got my strengths and I understood what that was, my positivity shines brighter than everything else. My positivity, people have asked me, positivity is like a fluffy strength. No, my positivity is my lifeline. I know you can put me in any situation at any time, anywhere, and I'm going to come out just fine. And that's what he failed to see. So I think a lot of times people see our strengths, but they don't see them as a strength because we might be using them wrong.
I'm sure most people would say, I want to be more positive. What if I take my strengths, as you put it, get them listed, and my positivity is number 34?
Right.
Is that it for me? I can't.
No. I wouldn't say let's work at it until you get it, because that's just going to be like doing everything with your opposite hand, pulling up an oak tree by the roots. But knowing your strengths we say when you understand your strengths, the outcome is profoundly different. And that came from a high school student. And what he meant was, I now know what my strengths are, but because I know them, I know how to pair them. I know how to make them hold hands. So because you don't have positivity up here and it's down here, you might have developer, or you might have belief, or you might have these other amazing strengths or futuristic that comes across as positive. And knowing how to use that, you can always bring that sense of
positivity.
Right.
Follows.
Exactly.
To an extent.
Right.
What are 34 strengths? I'm not asking to list them all off here. It's not a memorization concept. What are some others?
So all 34 fall under 4 leadership domains. There's heart strengths, which are blue, and they're color-coded in the assessment. So the blue strengths are heart. They're like harmony, empathy, developer, positivity, adaptability. They're not all warm, fuzzy strengths. Like my adaptability is not warm, fuzzy at all. And then there's green strengths, and they're your mind strengths. They come from the mind, strategic thinking. They would be ideation, strategic, futuristic, context. They're the input, learner. So they come from the mind. Then there's action strengths, which are coded purple, and they're the doing strengths. There's how you get things done. So consistency, belief, responsibility. That one is a killer for everyone. That frustrates everyone. So those are a couple. And then there's influencing strengths. They come from the voice, and they tend to be very loud and commanding. They tend to enter the room before most people do, before the strengths enter them before they do. And those are command, communication, self-assurance, very strong and powerful.
Does anything physical enter into it? Is being 6'6" a strength?
No, but there are, Gallup's done research for 60 years, and I was really shocked. I've been told my whole life that I was too intimidating, and I'm like, I'm just a munchkin. How can I be intimidating? Where is that even coming from? And then when I started looking at my strengths, I started seeing that I do have a lot of orange strengths in my top 10. So that would be a lot of that intimidating. But then what I found out was Gallup did research on predominantly male strengths that show up more in males and strengths that show up more in females. 90% of my top 10 are all male dominant strengths. And so, yeah, on a girl, that would be, especially a tiny girl, that would be a little more intimidating.
What if someone said, bullying is my strength?
Oh.
And I don't know if anyone would say it in exactly that way, or maybe you've encountered that.
I have encountered that.
Is that legit?
Yes, it is. When I talk to clients, I tell them, you can use your strengths from the balcony or you can use them from the basement, right? And if they're in the basement, you put them there or somebody else put them there. Bullying is generational. Nobody's born a bully, and it's a learned behavior, yes. It also can be something that is your strength being in the basement, and when your strength's being naughty, then we have to look at what is the strength that's doing that, and how do we bring it to the balcony so it shines pretty.
Is ambition a strength?
There is a strength that there's a couple strengths that look like ambition, yes, but the word ambition is not a strength.
How about caution?
Nope, there's consistency. I like to say we had a big debate one time on the consistency strength, and it's a purple strength, so it's a doing strength. And people who are consistent do things consistently. They're the reason policies and procedures are in place. They like that consistency. They treat people consistent. And so we had this big debate years ago on whether consistency was Batman or Captain America. And we came to the conclusion that consistency, people who have consistency in their top strengths, I call it their tool belt, are more like Captain America. Everything's fair, right, true, just, and fair. And I learned a long time ago, don't ever play Monopoly with somebody who's got high competition and somebody who has high consistency.
Competition?
Yeah.
Ambition. Competition is one of them?
Mm-hmm. It is. It's an orange strength. And my son, so my competition's number 33. Oh, strengths aren't genetic. And so, yeah, your kids won't have your strengths and you don't have your parents' strengths. That's kind of what makes parenting so hard, is where we try to parent to our strengths and our kids are nothing like it. And my youngest is high in competition, and everything was an argument. Like they have a tone and so strengths actually saved our relationship many years ago, because I learned from his competition strength that I could say, this is not a competition, it's a conversation. So I need you to put your competition aside for a minute. Nobody's going to win here. We're just going to have a conversation. And he will tell you that the reason he graduated school and was able to get through a master's program was because he aimed his competition, not just for the benefit of himself, but for the benefit of his classmates and the people he was going to school with.
So that's one of the objectives once you have the assessment, what your strengths are. Now, what do I do?
First, you name them. So I have competition. What is that? What does that look like? And then we claim it. So then my thing as a coach is I really want you, I can give you words all day long, but until you can tell me what your strength looks like in action, then I know that you're starting to understand. And then we're going to go into aiming it. And then I teach you how to aim those strengths to make a difference. When you know that, you can literally go into a meeting and go, I know these people in this meeting. I want to get this done today. These are my strengths I'm going to present to them in order to have a positive outcome. Makes a big difference.
You said before we turn the cameras on, there are no failures.
Mm-mm.
Is that just you talking? Is that your training talking in this method of coaching?
We learn something from everything we do. So if we are not looking at what we're learning, then yes, it's always going to feel like a failure. But if we can take that, what we think is a failure, and say, well, really it was just a speed bump. It's the lessons I learned to make me stronger, better, to get me through the next hurdle. And so there are no failures. Like, we're not failures.
It can be pretty easy to hang your head, can't it?
It can. And I've done it. And then I have to sit back and go, wait a minute. What was the lesson? What did I learn from this?
I just think
Good, bad, or ugly.
I think, again, there is a typical type of resistance. Some of everybody has, but some people do. This sort of fighting against, sort of stiffening against this idea of sort of self-help.
Fear.
And that's fear?
I think it's fear. Yeah. I think it's a fear-based decision. Because what if I told you there was something wrong with you?
That's how I'd react, I guess.
Yeah, that's fear. You're afraid I might tell you something wrong, but I don't. So I had a client once who worked in an industry he didn't like, he didn't enjoy. He'd been in there 30 years, and we did his strengths. We only did his top 5. I said, you have amazing strengths. And he said, I understand what you're saying. I have not seen those qualities in myself for over 30 years. I was broken for him. I'm like, why? And he said, I've hated everything. I've hated my job. I've hated my work. He goes, I guess I just figured if I hated everything that bad, there was nothing about me to like.
So
I felt that was really sad. He is thriving now. He's doing really well. He's had some wonderful life things that brought him out of that industry, and he's doing really well.
Do you think everybody ought to do this?
I think everybody should have. Yes, absolutely. I think it gives us a new perspective on who we are. And it also keeps us from believing all those barrier labels people tell us. That barrier label you're carrying from the time you were 15 and somebody told you, oh, you're never going to be this, or don't. I had a teacher tell me once as a barrier label, don't expect to be any kind of an author. Well, I'm co-authoring my 4th book, and I'm doing my own book right now. And so, yeah, don't believe the barrier labels.
So the assessment is something I would do first myself.
Right. I would send it to you. It's online, and it's clearly don't think about any of the questions assessment. You want to answer from your gut. I'm like, and tell you how long it is, because then you'll say, no, I don't want to do the assessment.
But answers aren't always easy.
They're not. It has a question, and it'll have 2 answers on either side. And so you pick which side you're at, or it'll have a question here or a question here, and you pick which one is more you. We want to get you as many answered and as more true to your gut reaction as we can.
A lot of times when people have asked me, what's your favorite, and what do you like to do? Often my answer is, well, I never thought about it in that way, I guess.
I would tell you that you probably have a lot of adaptability somewhere.
If you think you're going to go through and suddenly click, 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 click there, now I'm strong, it involves some work.
It does. I think it involves some self-work.
Yeah.
I spent years thinking people saw me a certain way or had expectations of me. It wasn't until I truly understood what I brought to the table that the pressure was off my back. I don't have to run a 5K anymore or a half marathon. I don't have to do that. It's not who I am. It's not what I'm strong at. I'm going to focus on things that make me feel great about who I am and embrace my Disney-esque attitude that my dad gave me.
What constitutes success for someone who comes to you?
I think success is relative to what you want to achieve. And whether it be at goals or relationships or I had a client example who has had issues with her mom for years. And when she understood her strengths, and what they bring to the table, she started working on that. I just got a text message a few weeks ago that said, I was able to have a conversation with my mom, not a long one, but able to have a conversation with my mom and without any fighting, without any regret, and it was enjoyable. To me, that's success.
What strength was she bringing to it that she didn't bring to it before, do you think?
Belief. Yeah. Belief. There's a strength called belief, and doesn't have anything to do with religion. I will tell you that it's probably one of the heaviest strengths because your core values and my core values are different. But with belief, are you carrying around beliefs that no longer serve a purpose? And I think a lot of people do. Well, I always give you homework.
Yeah.
Like you're always going to have things to work on, but that's where growth comes in. So I have command. It's just what it sounds like. It's bossy, right? I'm told all the time, you're so bossy. I'm like, I know. Isn't it great? We're going to get so much done today because this bossy little munchkin, we're going to work hard and get it done.
I appreciate hearing about what you're doing. You're serious about it. You get serious results, important results, and it's important work.
Oh, thank you.
So, MaLinda Perry, thanks for doing all that and for being with us on Wyoming Chronicle.
Thank you so much.